Hi guys, this is Erica from Gokce Capital. Now before I begin, be sure to click subscribe and turn on the notification bell. On September 15th, 2021, Rhonda's well ran dry. It hasn't had water since. What happened? We'll find out at the end of this video. But first, if you rely on groundwater, you should know what a groundwater table is. And in today's video, we have the top things you should know. Number 1. What is groundwater? Groundwater is water found in the cracks and voids of the soil and rock below the surface of the earth. About 30% of all fresh water in the United States comes from groundwater. Thus, it is an incredibly important resource. Number 2. What is a groundwater table? A groundwater table is the upper layer of an underground surface in which the soil or rocks are permanently saturated with water. Number 3. What factors impact the groundwater table? There are a number of factors involved, including topography, geology, weather, ground cover, and land use. Number 4. What are the effects of long-term climatic trends on groundwater tables? Groundwater tables are not static, and as we just saw, depend on weather as much as the underlying geology of the rock beneath the ground. When you have long periods of above-average precipitation, the water table may rise closer to the surface. While this can be great for those who want to access groundwater, it can become problematic when it gets too close to the surface and starts to create flooding. Conversely, long periods of below-average precipitation will cause the water table to drop. Number 5. How can you find the depth of the groundwater table in your area? Well, if there's a shallow well on site, or if the table is high enough that you can dig down to it, all you need to do is measure the depth to the water with a measuring tape. But this is not possible for many people. An alternative is to use geophysical methods, like sonar. The only thing here is that you need special equipment, so you'll likely need to hire a surveyor or a geotechnical engineer. Finally, you can check a database. Just note that these databases may not always be up to date. Several of the top resources you can use include the USGS National Water Information System, the National Groundwater Monitoring Network, and your state's database of drillers' logs. And number 6, how can you protect and conserve groundwater? As we've already covered, groundwater is a very important resource, but it is a finite one, and if you overuse it, it won't be available for the future. So here's what you can do. When landscaping your property, choose native plants that use less water. Reduce chemical use on your property in order to avoid contamination. In a similar vein, manage your waste properly. The most important thing here is to check that your septic system is in good working condition at all times. So that covers the basics of groundwater tables. And with that, let's return to Rhonda Neiseth. On September 15th, 2021, just 9 months after she bought her home, Rhonda's well ran dry. Rhonda knew exactly what this meant, for Rhonda is the Social Services Emergency Liaison for the Oregon Department of Human Services. And last summer, she oversaw the distribution of more than 100 water tanks to residents in Klamath County with empty wells. You see, Klamath County is in the midst of a two-pronged crisis. It was recently hit by a multi-year drought, which shows no sign of letting up. But for the past 2 decades, the Bureau of Reclamation has also been lowering its groundwater table. In 2001, the Bureau of Reclamation, or the federal agency that manages the agricultural water supply in the region, began paying farmers to pump groundwater. This was supposed to be a temporary stopgap measure to tide over farmers when new regulations came into effect to protect surface water for the collapsing salmon population. Historically, the Bureau had relied on surface water to provide irrigation water to farmers in the region. But in 2001, the combination of a severe drought and new regulations meant there was no surface water available for irrigation. To head off conflict, the Bureau turned to the idea of water banking, where it would pay some farmers not to farm and others to pump large amounts of groundwater. This again was supposed to be a short-term solution. Everyone knew that long-term pumping of groundwater was unsustainable. But one dry year turned into another, and now 20 years later, in the face of another severe drought, groundwater tables have fallen. Now I want to pause for a moment and say the Klamath drought, its impact, and the way water is used and allocated in the region is a complicated topic, and I don't mean to oversimplify it here. But the reason I bring up Rhonda's story is to point out that your groundwater table can be unreliable. In the face of the drought, Rhonda has decided to drill another, deeper well, but many others in the area can't afford this and must rely on county water delivery. So if you too depend on groundwater, it may be worth having an emergency fund in case you need to drill another well. And in the meantime, it doesn't hurt to adopt water-saving measures. But what do you think? Do you have any stories about groundwater tables? Let us know in the comments. Did you like this video? You're going to love our Gokce Land Due Diligence program. We'll make you a land due diligence expert in just 7 days. Check it out at gokcecapital.com/glad. And while you're at our listing page, don't forget to explore our $1 down properties at gokcecapital.com/listings. Finally, don't hesitate to reach out. So thank you for listening, and more to come.